Yevgeny and Svetlana have 11 children. 9 of them are adopted. 7 of the adopted kids are HIV positive, along with Yevgeny.
Nikita was our first adopted child, and the only one that we chose personally. We didn't select any of the others. We didn't really consider it normal. This isn't just shopping where you can go and take things off a shelf. I think all children really should have a family. It doesn't matter if he's healthy or sick, pretty or ugly, black hair or red hair, whatever. All of them need a mum and a dad.
The Isayevs' own 2 girls are, like their mother, perfectly healthy. The Isayevs have a separate refrigerator filled with medicine.
Some take half, some a quarter. Everyone has their own dose.
Petro. Nikitos. Sasha.
At 7 o'clock sharp every morning and evening, the kids and their father take their medication. The Isayevs cannot afford to forget, as their lives depend on it.
I just wanted to help at least one person. You could say I felt that when I was having contractions before giving birth to Anya. A doctor came by and said, "Oh, that's the one with the husband who's HIV positive." And then all the doctors suddenly changed. They started to protect themselves like they were going into space. 10 face masks, 15 pairs of gloves, everything they had. I was thrown into an isolation ward, and my husband wasn't allowed anywhere near me.
In 1992, it was a hospital that handed down their verdict, you might say. They diagnosed me with AIDS. The bed was smashed up. The mattress, that was just dumped on a rubbish fire. And then they discharged me from hospital with a temperature of more than 39 degrees Celsius. I felt like a complete social outcast. Everyone I knew, relatives, neighbors, friends, they all just turned their backs on me. I was devastated, well, for a month or 2. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I wanted to be left alone. And so, well, I started taking drugs. That was my way to kill the pain and to combat the depression. It was a really terrible time. I was given a black eye in a fight. They hit me on the head with a hammer. And that was when I understood, I knew that I had to find some new direction to move in. And so, that's how I found the church.
Ten years ago, I saw an absolutely shattered life at my door. It seemed he was just a couple of steps away from the grave. They don't even notice people like that. In fact, they want to push them away. Svetlana came here with a broken soul and a desperate future. She didn't have a problem with drugs, but she did have other problems. They brought her to the rehabilitation center in handcuffs. Heavenly Father, thank you, God, for your sons and daughters. Forgive us and break the curse in these people's lives. Break the devil's collar and bless them. After rehab, they fell in love and they came to me. They said, "Pastor, we're in love." They wanted to start a family. I said, "No way. I don't even want to hear about that. You're HIV positive and she isn't, so don't do that, please." But they came back again saying, "Pastor, we love each other. We really mean it."
It was only after we saw him for the 3rd time to ask him to marry us that he said, "Okay, guys, it's your fate. It's your decision." And then he gave us his blessing and he married us.
The first pregnancy was very difficult. The Isayevs were expecting twins and already had names for them, Anya and Ilya. Anya survived, but the boy Ilya died in childbirth. After the tragedy, Svetlana asked her husband to adopt a child. They decided to take one who was HIV positive.
After people learned about the adoption, they were really shocked. As it turned out, it was the first official adoption of an HIV-positive child in Ukraine.
The Isayevs' children study in an ordinary village school. The law is supposed to protect those living with HIV from social discrimination, but only their adoptive mother can protect them from ignorance.
One day I received a phone call from the headmaster. I was told that some other parents there were causing a fuss. My kids had HIV that could be passed on, and they were worried about that. I had to meet the parents and explain to them that for the virus to transfer, my child would have to cut open their arm along with yours and rub the two together. Only after that did they calm down a bit, but I still get looks from time to time.
9 це. 9 це 5 і 4. 1 і 8.
They are children, so they sometimes get into scraps and sometimes they bleed. The main thing the parents were afraid of is that blood would get on somebody and they would catch the virus. I tried to make sure this doesn't happen. I'm always with them. We just asked them not to fight, bite, or pinch one another, not to eat from the same apple.
Saliva contains a small percent of the virus, but it is so minute that infection from saliva is impossible. Household objects like cups, spoons, forks, and shared bathrooms and towels cannot transmit the virus.
When we took Ira home, she was fine. She could run and jump, and everything was fine. But last year, she literally started to fall to her knees and couldn't walk or jump. We sent her to the hospital for a checkup. The doctors told us she was suffering from an overdose. They said her medical treatment was all wrong.
Here are my family's handprints. These are mine. There is Mom's. Those are Dad's. And it's Yura.
She spent about 4 months in the hospital, mostly on a drip. They were trying to flush out all those chemicals. Now we hope and pray and believe in a miracle. We ask God that she'll run again, just the way she used to.
Now we've changed her treatment. She needs to go through a series of massages. But the thing is that now we treat the virus, but damage her liver. Come here, baby. What's wrong? What happened? Yura, what happened? Why are you crying? We had another tragedy. In week 32 or 33 of the pregnancy, I gave birth prematurely. The boys died. The first one within 5 minutes, the other within 2 days. This year, they would have turned 4.
But, well, if they had been born healthy, we would probably never have had Yura, or Sasha, or Misha. We didn't plan to have Yeva, actually. We just thought Svetlana was going to have 2 boys, and that would be it. When it came to Sasha's adoption, I refused to take her in, even though they asked us to do so 3 times. At that time, I wasn't ready to make the decision, either morally or psychologically. She wasn't just HIV positive like all the other kids. She also had stage 4 AIDS and tuberculosis.
My dream was to have parents, to have a mom and dad, for them to come and take me home. There aren't many people ready to take kids like us.
The doctor said she wouldn't be in this world for long. Every time I touched her head, I had clumps of hair in my hand. Every morning her pillow was covered with her own hair. I thought I had to buy a wig for her. We were told she was going to live about a year or two at most, and I said, okay, let it be a year or two, but in a family. Let her feel it, finally. I call children with HIV sick flowers. With the same as a flower, you simply just have to water and nourish them. That was what we needed to do. We nourished her like a flower.
It was the first New Year's Eve I spent with a family. I got a lot of presents. There was a doll and a lot of dresses. It was so huge and unbelievable to me. I've never had something like that before.
She blossomed like a rose. We got her better and she finally blossomed. This year she's going to turn 14. We draw, we sing, we do gymnastics, we can do it all.
Багато пісень ми про маму співаєм, в думках ми у неї весь час. Але ми прекрасно про те пам'ятаєм, без батька не було би нас.
Things are completely different now. The tuberculosis treatment is all over, and her cells have grown. The doctors just shrug their shoulders. They can't understand it. I think it's all about the family. When you really feel it, things can change quickly. I think all diseases can be treated with love, warm affection, and care.
Таточку, татусю, найрідніший мій. Таточку, татусю, ти мов оберіг. Таточку, татусю, ти один такий. Будь же мій татусю, завжди молодий. Будь же мій татусю, завжди молодий.
Thank you, everyone, for that standing ovation for the Isaev family. You are great.
At that moment, it was like a dream come true. A dream come true because we're just ordinary people from a village. And it was so fantastic to stand there in front of the whole country and to hear the applause of the elite, of the politicians, and the famous athletes of Ukraine. It was amazing.
Here it is. It's quite heavy. The kids say it's just good for cracking nuts.
It's no good for anything else. They just clapped a bit, cried, and that was it.
I'm a driver. All the money I make mostly goes towards medication. It takes a lot to get them back on their feet after chemotherapy. Every time we leave the village, we drive here past our unfinished house. They promised us a good home for the kids. Everyone was to have his own room, said one politician. He was a successful businessman. But he was just good enough to pour concrete for the foundations. That was it. I think it was a PR stunt in the election run-up. The front hall was to be here. Then the lounge with a TV set, the kitchen, and a big terrace. The second floor was going to have several bedrooms, each for 2 people.
Misha has 2 sisters. They live 100 kilometers away from us. We've never seen them, though. His mother found out that she was HIV positive when she was in the maternity ward, and she immediately gave him up. A while later, she ended up in prison. His grandmother took the girls because they were healthy, but Misha had to go to an orphanage.
Once he came back from school really upset. He said he was never going to go back there ever again. So I asked him what happened. He said they'd called him Professor. I just burst out laughing. He didn't understand. So I told him if you're able to become a real professor one day, I'll be completely happy to have a bright son like that. He thought it was a rude word.
Misha and Alexandra were adopted right after the twins' death. The doctors tried to convince Svetlana that she would not be able to have children again. At that point, the Isayevs already had 8 adopted children, as well as their own daughter.
Everyone says we're a bit crazy, but I really felt something inside my heart. Something like, if you lost 2, take another 2 and you'll be blessed. So it happened like that. We adopted 2 children, and I got pregnant immediately.
Their daughter Yeva was born perfectly healthy.
Once a girl wrote to me. She said she'd heard my story and decided to marry a man with HIV, but things didn't go well. She got infected and had an HIV-positive child. I know that I don't have it, but still sometimes I have thoughts that maybe I do. But I know that I'm not infected.
Quite often, those couples have healthy children. The father cannot infect the child. The virus can be transmitted only by the mother. If the mother doesn't have it during conception, it means the child is going to be 100% healthy.
Hello?
Hello.
Can I pick up my test results?
What is your last name? When did you have the test?
Yesterday.
Here it is. Everything's fine.
Negative.
Yes.
Thank you. Goodbye. No, please don't follow my example. You know, it can be dangerous for your health.
Shoulders back. Chin up, boys. Dress right. Attention. Good morning.
Good morning, Pastor!
I use the same cups and plates that the children with HIV do. I was never afraid of that. But in the beginning, I couldn't understand why all the officials didn't want to have tea when they came to visit. At some point, I just realized they were scared. They were afraid of getting infected. So I want to say it once again. HIV-positive people are like us, and a lot of them are amazing.
Pastor Gennady has set up what's probably the biggest shelter for children in the whole of the former Soviet Union. These are kids who, well, they used to live in basements. They were addicted to various sorts of drugs.
Here's the 32nd one I officially adopted. Here's number 32. I can't find the place where I usually put the number tag. Maybe it's in his ear. I don't remember.
The pastor was the first to tell us about the orphans and the homeless children. All children should have their own family. We started to get involved in that because of him.
From the age of 7 to 9, I was living on the streets, asking people for money. I'd just have a bread roll for a whole day. The rest of the money was spent on cigarettes, beer, and vodka.
Vitalik has his own story. We took him from the street. He ran away a few times. He was a pickpocket and he was always up to something. I got him adopted, but I didn't even have my own place at the time. Right at that time, Yevgeny Isayev started his family shelter. One day, Yevgeny invited him to his place. I was sort of worried that Vitalik would steal something and run off, but it was okay. So in 3 or 4 days, Yevgeny told me to leave the boy there. And he did kind of well, so we decided to leave it at that. So, I'm sort of renting out my adopted son. I should charge you at least a ruble for that.
We're getting ready for a bike ride. We've already traveled about 1,000 kilometers across the whole of Ukraine from Mariupol to Kiev. We've also gone around most of Russia. We want to travel around the world and tell everyone to adopt children.
Guys, I want you to have a really good ride today. I want you to make at least 50. That'll make the bike tour so much easier. We ride to carry the message about adopting children. Our main goal is to see that all of the orphanages are closed down, so that every child will have a place of their own. And I don't just mean the good-looking, blue-eyed ones. I'm also talking about the handicapped kids, with cerebral palsy, the ones with AIDS or HIV. I think they all deserve a home, regardless of how sick they may be.
Yevgeny brought Yura home. He was nervous, in tattered clothes, and looked like a wolf cub. I opened the car door and saw him there. He was filthy, with lots of dirt under his fingernails. There was a cell phone in his hands, and he looked really scared. I didn't know how to start talking to him. I asked him if he wanted some sunflower seeds. He said no. Then I asked about ice cream. Again, no.
I've got some pictures here. This is what he looked like when I first brought him here. It was his own father who beat him like this.
He did it because I forgot to take some pills. He asked me if I did, and I said no, so he started to hit me.
He didn't want to hear any explanations. He just wanted a result. So, being depressed and drunk, he just worked his anger off on him. The boy was left all alone to fend for himself.
He didn't let me outside, so I started to run away, trying to make some money. We searched through dumpsters looking for scrap metal. I'm HIV positive, so nobody wanted to make friends with me. They chased me, spat on me, and threw stones.
When his father became sick, we went to see him. Yuri had his own money box. I wanted to give him some cash so he could buy a present for his dad. But he said he was going to use his own savings. So he broke open the box and went to a store. He bought the best things he could afford. Some things that he probably never tried himself.
This is my real father. When I saw him the last time in hospital, he was really happy to see me there. I told him about my trips to the Crimea. He told me to be a good boy, take my medicine at the right time, and look after my health.
I saw that his father was almost crying there. He begged Yura to forgive him for everything. And I could see that the boy had forgiven him, and they were reconciled there and then. A month later, his old man died. One day we went to an aqua park, but he just wasn't interested. He went down a couple of the slides, but then he just sat there, sad and all alone for most of the time. I thought that he just probably didn't like it. So we took him sailing instead. But still he wasn't happy about that either. He wasn't happy about anything. But one night, he just came up to Svetlana and told her. He said he doesn't need anything except us, Mum and Dad, and our love.
We have 11 kids.
In 8 years, we've become the happiest parents in the world. We have managed to get into those lives. The kids' lives that nobody's interested in. Children who tend to spend their whole lifetimes in shelters and orphanages.
They taught us to believe and trust people. And I still need to learn more, even at my age, about how to fight for one's rights in one's life. The most important thing is to believe. That's what a lot of grown-ups have to learn from them.